I'll be completely honest with you. I kinda stopped caring much for the zombie story when Black Ops 3 started. The idea of taking premise and sending them around through the multiverse just to kill off past characters and prevent every major event from zombies' history felt insulting and such a waste to me. Rather than going in a new direction, the Blundell story from the Giant to Revelations was just so tonally different from what came before, but not in a good way. Because Mob of the Dead presented its story in a different way, but that worked. Here, BO3's story felt ridiculous and cartoony, especially when you literally introduce God and the actual devil as antagonists. It just cheapened the whole lore and world building that, oh, it's no longer Group 935 and its competition creating the perk machines, God just dropped them all over the map. The points and power-ups aren't manifestations of a little girl's mind because she sees this as a big twisted game with her powers. It was secretly Monty helping us out because everything was meant to happen this exact way to keep a cycle going. You know, Blundell really just took the cycle idea from Mob and retroactively forced it into the entire story, even if it didn't fit. In my opinion, it was stupid. Taking zombies and making it something else that doesn't work. Now, with BO4 being this so-called cycle break, having the story go in a new and non-predetermined direction, people were curious as to where it would all be leading. We all were teased that it would culminate in the Great War map.
What kind of war? A war unlike any you have ever seen. The Great.
And like I said before, Tag is awesome. It's a great map. And from a gameplay perspective, it's the best in my opinion. But story-wise, ending-wise, I already made a whole video talking about my disappointment with it. And there are those who would argue or say, this was the only way to end the cycle, to wrap things up and conclude the story. Even though that's absolutely ridiculous, there's no such thing as writing yourself into a box if you're good enough or creative enough. They could have absolutely come up with a better way to respectfully and satisfyingly end the Aether saga than killing off every major character by having them unknowingly drink poison and choke to death in their sleep. Like, really? Are you kidding me? You're gonna do my OGs like that? Give me a break. And the supposed whole point of that insulting, character-disgracing ending was to create a new world free from all the evils that corrupted the universe and created the undead. So Sam and Eddie could go and live in a world with no fears of the old one. That was why the writers said we had to kill off the Ultimus and Primus crews. That was the whole reason for all of this.
The very end of Black Ops 4, our characters sacrificed themselves to collapse the multiverse and try and create a singular world where zombies didn't exist. And they were half right.
And now they just threw it all away. What was the point of Tag's ending now? What was the reason for making a new world for the kids when one or both of them are just dead? Zombies constantly infiltrate the new world, and we have godlike entities that threaten everything again. The writing of the Dark Aether story has been one of the worst stories I've ever played in a video game, and I'm not kidding. In the way it's told, and in the actual story and plot itself. And, I mean, really? Bringing back the old crew? This just feels so cheap. This feels so artificial. I mean, for goodness sake, this feels like those times a slasher villain has been definitively killed, just for the writers to come up with a harebrained explanation to bring them back. And you know what it is? Money. That's why. Which is exactly what they did here. But we'll get into that in a while. Let's just break this down, shall we? This entire story isn't even a story at all. It's a bunch of disjointed, fake nostalgia teasers to keep you coming back for the next map. The world building is so uninteresting because it's forced into the Modern Warfare 2019 reboot world, so it has to stay within the confines of it. So everything that happens, no matter what, can only be self-contained, dimensional breaches that after they're done, leave no substantial impact on the world at large. Cold War, right off the bat, undercuts Tag's ending by having there be zombies in this new world free from the corruption. So already, that was for nothing. If there's still a way for zombies to happen, but Cold War's story fails because of the way in which it's told. Through intel and by the lack of main characters that you play as.
Who operate in the field, delivering insights and intel on this new world's fiction.
The intel you receive and recover is a huge component of our storytelling in Cold War, and for the first time, an innovative new intel system will make content accessible on demand anytime.
There's a lot to uncover that no one's ever seen before.
And intel.
Intel.
What made the story of World at War evolve over time was as the maps went on, they had characters with dialogue,
Popped his head like a melon!
then name characters,
Die, die, die! Oh, wade in your guts, maggot sack!
then unveiled the plot surrounding them. When you play as random operators and have one or two characters that blabber on in your ear through a radio, there's a disconnect from what's being told to you versus what you're actually doing. The best way I can describe it is that you're being told the story by someone else rather than you experiencing it through entirely player actions.
Unfortunately, my time here was focused entirely on atomic research, but I heard stories. Mysterious gateways, unnatural transformations.
You can't connect to what's happening because there's over 3 layers of separation, from you to the operator to the character reacting to it over comms. That's why every bit of dialogue is just constant exposition and why it feels no one shuts up.
Here we are, Ground Zero. Dimensional gates opening around the world. Should have known it would come back to some evil Nazi experiment gone wrong.
The Nazis lost control of the experiment in 45. Did the Soviets really think they'd do better?
Well, I think we can upgrade suspected Ground Zero to confirmed. The Nazis used the cyclotron to trigger a breach during the war.
And the story itself? It's written and presented so blandly, no one even cared what's going on.
Find Agent Maxis. Recover any intel you can.
Oh, come on!
And when the entirety of the game's plot can be summarized in the first map's Easter egg song, you know the game is so light on actual story depth. Seriously, read the lyrics of D Machines alone. It actually just says the entire plot of Omega and what happens on Forsaken. And speaking of, just having some random guy who walked into the Dark Aether somehow come out being this conquering, godlike being who doesn't even share any of the personality or characteristics of his human self feels so abrupt and cheap. Because there has to be some kind of threat after we randomly introduced a new villain character at the ending cutscene of the second map just to have her be killed off in the next. And yeah, I know some stuff happened in Outbreak, but that's not zombies. It's objective-based garbage, and I'd rather do Infection's Easter egg than play that trash. Cold War's story was boring. It was uninteresting, and the only reason that Treyarch got anyone to care about where it was going was to pull one of the worst tricks in the book to get interest back in their new story. By teasing everyone with an old character at the last seconds of the ending cutscene of the game. The literary equivalent of jingling keys in front of the audience's face. And that is exactly what the rest of the Dark Aether story did. Not write an actual story with engaging characters or interesting ideas, but just jingle keys every map to get you to want to play the next one by stringing you along. It's actually insulting when you look at it. Oh, no one cares about the Vanguard story? Okay, jingle Alistair Rhodes and the Sentinel artifact in front of them, retroactively making the Chaos story canon to this new one.
It reminds me of when I studied the writings of Alistair Rhodes, an amateur demonologist and personal hero of mine. Rhodes wrote about different objects of power that he called Sentinel artifacts. But I was never able to find out exactly what they were. Nevertheless, if we can find the relic we seek at Shinonuma, I am quite certain I can use it on Von List and trap Cortifex in that little scepter of his.
Which was an interesting idea and concept, but what did they do with it? Oh, we'll get to that wasted potential. Modern Warfare Zombies is an absolute disaster. Everything wrong with the Dark Aether world building is here on full display. This entire citywide outbreak is all contained. No threat of the larger world being ended, and using Modern Warfare campaign characters to yap in your ear to tell you the story. And I mention that because Soap is here, meaning that this takes place before the MW3 campaign, because, well, it couldn't take place after. And are there zombies, giant worms, and dark ether storms swarming the planet in that game? No, they're not. This is the problem with having all your reboot games be connected. You just limit as to where your story can go and what can actually happen. So there's no real threat. You know, the one thing all zombie media since the beginning of the genre has, the threat of a large-scale worldwide outbreak? Yeah, that can't happen because Treyarch is beholden to Infinity Ward's garbage campaign timeline. That's fun, isn't it? That means no maps like Moon, Mob, Origins, or Transit where the whole world is a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Because that wouldn't line up with Ben Shapiro's timing over here. And when you show all the Requiem crew dead in the intro cutscene, you just killed it. You killed any investment I had in those characters. Because I already know their fate. I know what happens to them. They end up dead around a table in some back room in whatever random Russian city this is. So now, BO6 Zombie's story has this looming over it and can't go anywhere interesting. Was Sam saved from the Dark Ether? Where's Richthofen? Doesn't matter. Because as of 2000, whenever this takes place, they're no longer relevant to the world as a whole. That's the problem with having an epilogue to your story come out before the second act. And with Chaos being retroactively placed at the beginning of this new timeline, you just completely threw all those maps' story under the bus. What happened to Scarlet or Diego? Where's Medusa? And what was that talk of the Library of New Alexandria? What did any of that mean? Well, you know what it meant? Nothing. Because none of it is ever mentioned again. They just threw the Chaos story into this one with no actual care for its elements whatsoever. Again, just jingle keys with no thought. The Chaos maps take place 100 years before the events of MWZ. And what relevance does it have for them both being a part of the same timeline? And that ending for MWZ, all it was just another last-second teaser for BO6. No real reasoning for why Ava gets sucked into a portal to the past. All it is another gotcha to get you to buy the next game and hope you stick around, but give nothing in the form of real story development. Oh, and spoilers, it's never brought up in BO6 whatsoever. BO6 was teased, built up, and got people interested in Richthofen being back. That was all they had. What was he up to? What was his plan? All of this setup was the one thing about Terminus Island that I actually praised, because I thought the idea of combining Chaos and Dark Ether would be cool if done right. They jingled the Sentinel artifact in front of me, and I fell for it. Because the possibilities were endless of what you could do with it. Both Terminus and Liberty Falls served only as teaser maps to hook you, but reveal nothing new to the player. And that system of storytelling is exactly what makes the Dark Ether story so frustrating. Because really, when you think about it, there's no actual story here. It's just a sequence of maps where at the end, they tease you with a MacGuffin to collect and just give out one single bit of information to tease you for the next map. The actual plot is that Richthofen wants to use the Sentinel artifact because it has the power to bring people back from the dead, and he wants to resurrect his wife and child. When the entire plot revolves around bringing back dead characters that are first introduced to us as dead in the plot, who cares? The audience doesn't know Mary or Samuel, and this is just flat out told to us blandly in the cutscene before the boss fight on Shattered Veil. Again, just exposition. Nothing feels natural in the dialogue of this story whatsoever.
A whole decade, 10 years since my wife and child were killed in a botched hit intended for me, burned alive in a fire set by an inept, one-eyed CIA assassin with help from his German accomplice.
My God, Maxis and I, we killed your family.
Everything I've done, Requiem, Project Janus, Sam, all of it, just to fix your murderous fuck-up and bring Mary and Samuel back from the dead. And now you have lost the one thing that can actually do it!
And when looking back on it, it's a little ironic that the supposed threat is that the Sam AI wants to use the Sentinel artifact to reconstitute the real Sam's body and become her. Which I guess it can just do. Again, the Sentinel artifact just does whatever the writers want it to do. The Chaos connection only goes as deep as the Sentinel artifact is in the game, but not sharing any of the same lore or relevance it had in the original maps. It could have been any arbitrary item with lots of power, but it was the Sentinel artifact because jingling keys. Ooh, look, Chaos. Remember Chaos? Remember when we came up with actually original ideas instead of just repurposing them? Anyways, this plot point of the Sam AI replacing the real one, really ironic considering Activision refused to put in voice actor protections from AI slop, which they love to use, so the real actress for Samantha, along with Gray and Maya, quit. Yeah, they just said, F this, if you don't respect me as an actress and think you could just use my voice in the future with AI recreations, then I'm done. That's why the original Peck voice actor quit too. There's some seriously bad irony there. And when half the cast just leaves in the middle of the game's development, it really shows. These cutscenes just have so many characters standing around saying nothing. And it's so awkward and embarrassing. Because you know why. The actors just left. So you just have all these characters saying nothing and contributing nothing. And with all the in-game lines that they managed to record, we come to this dilution of just how many characters there are yapping all the time. Weaver, Carver, Gray, Maya, Peck, Strauss, Raptor 1, Ravenov, Sam AI, and by the end, Richtofen, Blanchard, and Panos! That's 12 characters! 12!
Don't cry, little zombie fan. Uncle Trek's gonna give you enough characters to feed you your entire life. Houston, bring on the Marvel humor. This boy's hungry.
Remember when it was 4 well-defined, memorable characters that talked story only at specific moments and not all the time, so you could actually get invested in them? And by the end, what happens? Like, half of them just disappear and don't have any lines at all. When looking back across the story from Cold War to this supposed conclusion, everything feels so small scale and insulting to anyone that actually cared about anything going on. They reveal that the original Samantha, the one from the end of Tag, and the one that sealed Forsaken away, is dead. Off screen, in one line of dialogue in the first 3 rounds of Reckoning.
Sergei, you deserve to know. Nexus was obliterated in the Dark Aether. There was never any chance of saving her.
Oops, sorry Nikolai. All that was for nothing, because Sam just dies anyway, fighting off some entity created by the Dark Aether, the dimension you sent everything to. And Eddie? Well, depending on which ending you pick, he dies too! Forsaken, the supposed big bad responsible for actually killing her, used as a side mini-boss joke and thrown away in like a minute. This guy, being the announcer of all the drops in Cold War, BO6, and MWZ, somehow, even though he's now dead, which makes no sense, is just tossed aside. Real impactful. The ending to BO6 isn't really an ending. It's just an arbitrary choice between 2 boss fights that leave no substantial impact on the world as a whole. Because remember, Ava was looking up what happened to the Requiem crew, and Richtofen isn't around, and neither is Sam at that point. So whatever ending you pick, does it even matter? See, this is what I meant when you have to have everything connected. And when you have your sequel come out before your actual plot. It kills any impact any of this could have had. Again, not that it really matters because Requiem just gets zapped away for no reason, and we get the biggest slap in the face in the history of COD Zombies. If you thought killing everyone off was bad, well, what's worse is bringing them back with no explanation or reason other than to jingle keys in front of you. This isn't a story. It's simply a hodgepodge of things from Zombies past thrown onto the screen in the hopes it'll trick you into caring. This is not a cohesive story with a purpose, with an expanding world and interesting lore that people make deep dives into, like they used to over 10 years ago. This is slop. Regurgitated garbage. What was the point of any of this if you're just going to undo it? And you know, when TAG ended and all the actors got together to share their memories of voicing those characters for a decade, it was a heartfelt and bittersweet thing. Learning to let go is important. Nothing lasts forever, nor should it, because if it does, it'll just dilute more and more until it's a parody of itself. And furthermore, after this ended, Tom Kane, voice actor who played Takeo, as well as countless other memorable voice roles like Yoda from the Clone Wars, he suffered a debilitating stroke in November of 2020, which damaged his speech center, the ability to speak, read, and write, unfortunately. So, with the OG 4 characters gone, it felt even more right not to bring them back, as one of the main 4 couldn't even return if he wanted to. And then they do this? This is insulting to me. And it's going to suck. Because what will they do? Recast Takeo to be some crappy sound-alike? Just like they did with Sam? Entirely replace him with an AI voice with just stitched together dialogue? Or recast everyone? Any way you look at it, it's insulting. It's disrespectful. And it doesn't need to happen. This story is so bad. It's so poorly told, and it's so uninteresting, you have to literally bring back dead characters that you killed off specifically to end the original story and tell this one. This is an abject failure, and an admission that they have no ideas left in the think tank. And all this final cutscene means is we'll have 8 characters, still poorly written, all blabbering about nothing but plot-relevant exposition. None of that charm the original 4 had will be here. It's going to be just as cringy and unfunny as the last 4 games have been dialogue-wise. The Dark Aether story is a joke. And I really hope that we stop falling for this. Because every single setup they've done since Cold War has had the worst to no payoffs whatsoever. Honestly, they should have left this alone and ended the story right here, with a truly perfect world free from all the corruption, where the souls of all the characters still exist, and simply move on, instead of the retreading of everything that came before.